Hi, my name is Michelle Norman. I'm from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. My family, both on my mom's and dad's side, were both very supportive of Confederation. Big Joey supporters as well. And we heard all the stories growing up, sort of all of the time. My grandmother was American, so she had a very different perspective and was very, very supportive of it. Well, my great-grandmother, of course, was long before my time. I don't know how she would have thought of it before she left, so to speak, but having come from Boston back to St. John's, she was appalled at the incredible poverty that she saw. And those were the stories they used to tell. They left Boston, they came by train up through Canada and so on. And when they got to the island of Newfoundland, she felt like she had entered a third world country. I mean, it was just so poor. They lived on, she met my grandmother she was maybe 18 when she came here, met my grandfather, got married, and they settled down on Mullock Street in downtown St. John's. All row houses in that area. And there was a lot of poverty. So she would tell stories of kids going to school barefoot in rags. Sometimes in the winter, they would wear very old 2 or 3 pairs of shoes piled on top of each other with holes in them. They would have their feet wrapped in rags. One of the commonplace things was for anyone who was comfortably off, had enough food to spare, they would cook a little extra and put it out on the back step. And children in the neighborhood would actually come and sit and eat from the plate and leave. There were people who were poor enough that they couldn't really cook extra, but they would actually put their scraps out. Because some kids were so hungry they would eat scraps. They'd eat the fat from the pork chops, suck on the bones. It was so, so poor. And that's what she really pushed with her kids, that you have no idea how much better you could have it as part of Canada. Because there was money in Canada. There was money here, but it wasn't for everybody. Absolutely. All 9 of her children voted for Confederation. All the partners died. I don't know on Dad's side of the family, I don't know if there are others who didn't, but Dad was a big supporter. Dad loves Joey. Knew him personally and really thought a lot of him and liked his politics. But yeah, they all did. And they talked about it for years. My Aunt Elaine, when she finally developed dementia, she would talk constantly about that. Mom said, Mom told us, Mom told us. As they do, she goes back in time. And yeah, every one of them, they had to vote, and they had to vote for Confederation. She really pushed that. But they all did. They believed it. They understood it, that was going to be better, and they were delighted when they did. It got so much better. So much better. Suddenly you have social programs in place, so to speak. Not like we have today, of course, but you start to get things like unemployment and support, baby bonus, all that sort of thing that really helped a lot of the poor families. Again, a lot of poverty in Newfoundland, all over the island. You know, it's not just in St. John's. But it made a huge difference for people to be able to support their families so much more easily that way. So we have always said we're Canadian first and then Newfoundlanders, as opposed to the other side, of course, who believe in independence will always have Newfoundlander first. But in our family, it was all, we are Canadian, we are proud Canadians. It was always a big deal to celebrate Canada Day. My American grandmother would also celebrate July 4th, but we celebrated the Canadian, absolutely. It meant everything to her to be part of this country. She loved it. You know, you turn back the clock to the merchants and the poor, and the merchants and the poor. I suppose technically we still have some of that. Under capitalism, you always will. There's the wealthy and the poor. But we haven't got the poverty we had in those days. And people matter. And there are social programs and systems in place, and there's safety nets for people. I think we're a million times better off. Absolutely. Because my grandfather, Dad's father, was from Bay Roberts. And at one time, there were a lot of Normans in Bay Roberts. So we were, I suppose in some ways, the landowners out there. I have an aunt who can take me around and show me all the places that we used to own and used to live and so on. But my grandfather left Bay Roberts to come to St. John's because the opportunities were bigger here. He was a linesman with Newfoundland Power. Not that it was a big job or a fancy job, but it was a better job than they had up there. The ones who stayed loved the rural aspect of it. They were big gardeners. Even my father always had a kitchen garden. They loved to garden. They grew a lot of vegetables and so on. So they loved being out there, but oddly, none of them were ever fishermen. There's no fishermen and there's no soldiers in my family. So it's a different rural experience, I suppose, in that regard. In the way of so many corrupt politicians, there wasn't that with Joey. Joey died poorer than any other politician in Newfoundland, in history, because he put everything into his books and his history and so on and so forth. Loved the place. And was, in his own weird sort of way, he was a great orator. Dad loved listening to him speak. He was very, just spoke well, very passionately.